You slide a nickel into the slot. There's a small click, almost mechanical and polite. Then the little glass door swings open. You reach in and pull out a piece of coconut cream pie sitting on a white ceramic plate. It was perfectly still behind that glass just a moment ago, as if it had been waiting there just for you. The room hums around you with the sound of 100 small transactions just like this one. Coffee pours itself from a chrome spigot. Steam rises from somewhere behind the wall. Nobody takes your order. Nobody calls your name. And yet, everything you need is exactly where you expect to find it. That was the Automat. And by the time most people thought to appreciate what it really was, it was already almost gone. The short answer is this. The Automat was brought down by a combination of forces it could not outrun. Rising labor costs, changing real estate values, the arrival of fast food chains, and the slow erosion of the dense city lunch crowds it depended on. But to say it that way is to miss almost everything that made it worth mourning. So let us go back. The Automat arrived in America in the early years of the 20th century. Horn and Hardart, a Philadelphia company, would go on to define the concept in the United States. They opened their first Automat in Philadelphia in 1902, and then in New York City in 1912 at Broadway and 46th Street. What they built was unlike anything most Americans had ever seen. Imagine a wall of small glass and chrome compartments stretching from one end of a long room to the other. Each compartment held a single portion of food, a slice of macaroni and cheese, a bowl of baked beans, a wedge of apple pie, a chicken pot pie. Everything was freshly prepared in kitchens behind the wall and replenished continuously by workers you never saw. Their labor kept the whole thing running like clockwork. You paid with nickels, not tokens, not paper tickets, nickels. There were change booths staffed by women who could fan out a handful of coins so quickly their hands seemed to blur. You brought your dollars and they gave you back nickels, and then the entire restaurant was yours to navigate on your own terms. The Automat was democratic in a way that very few dining spaces of that era were. You could be a secretary on a 30-minute lunch break, a construction worker with flowers still on his sleeves, a young couple on a modest date, or an elderly widow who came mostly for the warmth and the coffee. Everyone moved through the same room, ate the same food, and paid the same prices. There was no hostess to seat you based on how you were dressed, no waiter to look past you toward a better table. You walked in, you got your food, you sat down. The room made no judgments. For working people in mid-century New York and Philadelphia, the Automat was simply part of the rhythm of the week. You went there the way you went to the newsstand or the pharmacy. It was convenient, affordable, and genuinely good. Horn and Hardart's food had a real reputation. Their baked beans were famous. Their coffee was considered among the best in the city. Frank Sinatra said he missed it. The poet Langston Hughes wrote about it. Joseph Mitchell, the great chronicler of New York street life, ate there regularly. It was not a novelty for these people. It was Tuesday lunch. Children were fascinated by the mechanics of the place in a way no other restaurant could match. The little glass doors, the coin slots, the sense that the food appeared almost by magic. You could stand in front of the pie section for 5 minutes, just waiting for the moment when an unseen hand behind the wall reached in to replace a dish. It was theater built into the walls of an ordinary meal. But the world around the Automat was changing, and it was changing faster than the Automat could adapt. After the Second World War, American cities began to thin out. Families moved to the suburbs. The dense lunch crowds that had kept the downtown Automats full thinned a little more each year. The office workers were still there, but the neighborhoods around them were becoming more expensive to operate in.
Real estate in Midtown Manhattan kept rising, and the large floor plans the Automat required became harder and harder to justify. At the same time, the fast food chains were arriving: McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's. These were not better than the Automat in any meaningful sense when it came to the food itself, but they were cheaper to run, faster to serve, and aggressively marketed in a way the Automat simply was not. They opened in the suburbs where the families had gone. They opened near the highways. They opened everywhere, offering a consistency and a sameness that felt like reassurance to a country that was always moving and always eating on the run. Horn and Hardart tried to adapt. They introduced takeout service. They added more modern items to the menu. They experimented with the format. None of it quite worked. By the 1970s, the Automats were being converted one by one into Burger King locations. By 1991, the last Horn and Hardart Automat in New York City, the one on 42nd Street and 3rd Avenue, closed its doors for good. It had been serving food to New Yorkers for decades. Its closing was noted in the newspapers, briefly, and then the city moved on. What was lost was not just a restaurant. It was a particular kind of public space, one that asked almost nothing from you except a nickel and your own judgment about what you were hungry for. There was no performance to the Automat. No one was trying to upsell you or seat you strategically or craft an experience around you. It was just food behind glass and coin slots and coffee from a spigot shaped like a dolphin, and the low murmur of a room full of people who were all in their different ways just trying to get through the day. That quality is something that has become genuinely hard to find. We eat in places now that are designed to feel something, to signal a mood or a brand or a certain kind of aspiration. Even fast food is marketed with a personality. The Automat had no personality. It just fed people. And in that plainness, in that quiet mechanical reliability, there was a kind of dignity that we have mostly stopped expecting from the places where we eat. If you remember the Automat, I would love to hear what stayed with you: the smell, the sound, the particular weight of those little glass doors. And if you have never seen one, I hope this gave you some sense of what the city felt like on an ordinary afternoon in 1955, when you could slide a nickel into a slot and feel for just a moment that the world was arranged simply and fairly and in your favor. If this kind of quiet history is something you value, please consider subscribing. There's more where this came from, and every story like this one deserves to be remembered.